We are live, and today we're going to be sharing some artwork that is in progress. It's actually not finished, and I'm also going to talk about philosophy of art and what I think about that. And I've been watching a lot of other art channels, and there are a variety of views of what art is actually for and what we should use it for. And so, as you may know, art can be a way of getting out your feelings. You can. There is such a thing as art therapy, and it can be a wonderful way for people to deal with emotional problems and resolve their emotions by being artistic. And so, if you look at it that way, then art is some kind of a tool. It's almost like a medicine. Um, and there are people who really want to encourage others to engage in art, whether they're any good at it or not, because it makes people feel better when they are involved in art. And speaking of things that make me feel better, I enjoy drinking my coldest water. I am sponsored by the coldest water bottle. And if you follow the link in the description, you can get a 10% discount on your coldest water bottle, and you too could enjoy the coldest water. But I've never really thought of art as therapy, even though engaging in it is something that makes me happy. Okay, so on the one hand, there are people who say that the result of the art is completely unimportant. It doesn't matter what your artwork looks like. And the only thing that matters is that you're having a great time. And then on the other hand, there are these people who say, hey, I want to make a really good product. I want my art to be spectacular, and I'm going to use any tool whatsoever to arrive there, including, say, using a projector to put the image on your canvas so that you can trace it. And I don't go for that either. So I think it does matter what the art is like. I think that the product is important. And at the same time, I don't think that anything goes, at least not for me. So we'll talk about this some more, but I wanted to show you the progress so far of my art experiment. This year, I decided that instead of making a lot of really quick paintings, about one a week, the way I was doing before, I would see if I could take on a larger project and give myself a whole year to work on it. Now, we are at the end of April, and of course, the year is not up, but I thought I would share with you some of the things that I've done along the way. So, this should be the first step along my path. Today, I'm going to get started. I'm going to take the first few steps of my year-long project. Now, the thing that I'm going to attempt to be painting is this photograph. I could possibly show it to you closer. It's a family group. I don't know if you can see it, but it's basically a board this long, this wide, and so I'm going to take a whole year to fill it in.
So, what actually happened first Passover is that I realized I was painting the figures of the people too low. And actually, this figure needs to end over here, and this figure needs to end over here, and the dog is somewhere over here. So, instead of trying to fix this right now, I'm going to take the slow way of working on this. So right now I've tried to locate where the figures will go on the canvas, but because I noticed that I made a mistake, I'm probably going to go over that again, possibly in a different color, and I will probably not even do it today. So I'm going slow, and eventually we'll see what we get.
All right, so that was back in March. In fact, I was really slow getting started on my year-long project, and part of the reason is, I'm working full time right now from home, but I have a full load teaching, and so most of the time I just simply don't have any time for art. Art was something that I took up toward the end of 2019, I think. Well, I was starting on the Inktober project in 2018, and it was just something that was recommended for me to do. At the time, I was on the carnivore diet, and I had a lot of energy, and I took up a lot of projects, and then I kind of crashed. And so I wasn't able to finish the Inktober project in 2018. Um, and so in 2019, I tried again. And that was when the viewers on my successful channel told me that I had to stop. I couldn't do art on that channel because if I did, they would stop watching it because all they wanted to see was Bo grooming me, and I didn't. So it took me a while to understand that this was very serious and that I could lose everything if I persisted in painting when actually nobody wanted to watch me painting. And it's quite possible that they still don't. Um, so I decided that I would just go ahead and paint on this channel and not paint on my main channel. And at that time, I devoted a lot of my time. I would paint like a painting a week, and I thought that if I actually devoted myself to doing this for a number of years, that my paintings would get better. And guess what? I did it for about 3 years, and my paintings did not get better. In fact, to some extent, they got worse. So it's not really true what they say. It's not practice makes perfect. It's not that we should encourage people who aren't good at it to continue to practice. And so let me share with you another really weird thing that I saw on YouTube from somebody who was teaching art, and he said, you know, if people didn't have to actually look at their paintings at the end of a project, they would really enjoy art. So he had some kind of experiment where he got people to be very enthusiastic, and he promised them that nothing would remain of the art. It was going to be temporary and nobody would ever see it. And so they had a lot of fun painting because they were not concerned that people would judge them on their results. Okay. But for me, painting has never been like that. I mean, if there weren't any results, I wouldn't enjoy painting at all. On the other hand, I do have some deficits. I don't have a good spatial skills. And unlike other people, I can't put down everything perfectly the first time around, which is why I enjoy using acrylics because I can go back and I can correct things. So let's watch how I corrected my original mistakes. This was on, it's in the continuation of March, March the 16th, and I was putting my figures up higher on the airplane. Now, some people will sketch out everything perfectly, and then once they have their figures, they will just uh, color them in. And the whole idea of painting seems to be putting the right colors in the right places and blending them and all of this kind of thing. And for me, painting is like drawing. It's about getting the picture right, getting the shapes right. That's what it is for me. So it's um it's quite a different way that I look at things. I know people who will get all the shapes right and then spend a whole year or longer just painting in the colors. But for me, I want to use the colors to paint the picture, which means I want to use the colors to make the form. And I had, another person comment on my paintings. She said, "Oh, your style is that your red kind of blends into your black," and so on and so forth. And I think what she was talking about is that when I was using watercolors, I really had trouble controlling the water, and the paint would run, and because of that, things were not, the colors were not pure, and so people often take, that they look at what I'm doing and they might not understand what my deficits are and what my challenges are and what I'm really trying to achieve. So here, what I'm doing is, on the one hand, I'm trying to feel out what is the shape of this airplane. And by the way, if you're wondering what kind of airplane it is, it's a, a Cessna 140. It was my father's airplane. It was a tail dragger. I did fly it myself a few times, but I never landed. I was taking flying lessons. So around age 15, I was learning how to drive and also learning how to fly. And I wasn't very good at any of these things. But my father told me that I should learn how to learn because at that time, I took it very badly if I couldn't do something well. And my father said that part of the trick to learning is you have to know how to learn and you have to be able to take correction and you have to be able to accept that you've made a mistake and learn from your mistake. And while I never did actually a solo on this plane, I had a lot of experiences with it. And anyway, I'm not getting the shape of the plane completely correct, but this is the second issue, the second time that I worked on my year long project. And that's how far I got with it. So you can see I didn't get very far in March. Now, in April, I was supposed to have a vacation from my teaching. It's an Israeli school, so they go by Israeli holidays. And so Passover was a holiday. And I had hoped that I could go visit my mother, but I didn't have a sitter for my animals. So I ended up having a staycation in April. But anyway, let me see what this is. This is still March, I think. March the 23rd. I was still working on the very basic, the rudimentary thing. I was kind of, I didn't really know where everything was placed. And, when I feel my way through the shapes, part of what I'm doing is I am trying to see where everything is relative to everything else. So it's not like having perfect pitch, but having relative pitch. And I'm trying to figure out where everybody should go based on where everybody else is. And I'm feeling my way. And that's why I have to make these corrections because, I didn't use a projector. I could have. I could have projected my reference photo onto the canvas, and I could have presumably, although I'm not very good at doing that, but I could have traced the lines from the projector, and then I wouldn't be constantly painting and repainting these figures because I would know exactly where they're supposed to be. And somebody told me, when we were painting together, she said, the great masters used the camera oscura, and that was really a primitive form of projector. So it's actually perfectly okay and not cheating if you do use a projector. And of course, I don't think that it's cheating because there's nothing, it's not a competition. And anybody can do whatever they want to in their own paintings. Um, but for me, part of the pleasure is trying to feel out where everything is. So I was raised painting and drawing freehand, and I just wouldn't feel right to use a projector. So as a result of this, I'm constantly feeling my way, trying to see what the relative size, the relative values, what everything is supposed to be relative to everything else. And what I'm interested in my paintings is the relationship of the objects to one another. And of course, the objects that I like to paint the most are not airplanes, but people. But since my father loved airplanes, and this is a family portrait of a picnic that we once had a very long time ago, uh, I decided that the airplane did need to be in the picture, even though I'm not good at describing the form of an airplane. But anyway, this was still in March before my staycation. And I hadn't gotten very far in this painting.
So, what do you think? Is it looking more realistic?
Okay, so before we get into the painting that I did during the month of April, um, let me talk a little bit more about this. So, on the one hand, there's this guy who is actually a professional painter, and he has gorgeous, very large portraits of people, and he colors them in not necessarily natural colors, but they look astounding. And he was doing a piece that was actually a commission, and he was showing us how he was using a projector to project some kind of photograph, I guess, onto his canvas, and then he was going to paint it. And that's the way he did it. He was totally unabashed about it. He said he uses the tools that are necessary to make the very best product. And if you look at art as making a product, then by all means that sounds perfectly acceptable. But then why not just use AI? That might be another way to do it. And I'm not saying that that's wrong either. It's just not what I do. So, continuing with my staycation.
And sometimes when I have time off from my teaching, I still don't have time off from my animals. And so this Passover break, I had to take a staycation rather than a vacation. And it's still pretty nice. And I got to paint. Okay, so I'm going to try to tackle the painting again. And one of my concerns is that the mother over here has her head way too high compared to the father over here. And so we're going to have to somehow adjust that. Although it's true that the people sitting on this bench are closer than the people sitting on that bench. So there is an effect where somebody who would actually be shorter is looking taller. Also, the upper torso of the mother is longer compared to her lower torso, whereas the father has a very short upper torso and has long legs. And so when they're sitting down, the difference in height between them is not seen. But anyway, my goal here is to get everybody adjusted so that they look about the same compared to each other, given where they are sitting.
Okay, so that was the first day of painting during my staycation. Um, and you can see that I love to do the faces. The other parts I don't like so much. I don't even like hands and arms and fingers and all of those things. Or some people say, Aya, you need to learn anatomy, and then your figures will look better. And it's really funny because I just today I saw a meme that was a painting from the Renaissance of the Virgin Mary breastfeeding. Well, it was supposed to be. I don't know if it was really, but anyway, breastfeeding the baby Jesus, and the breast was not in the right place. It looked like it was almost coming out of the neck. But, I don't think my problem is that I don't know anatomy. My problem is that I don't know geometry. And I do know how things are supposed to be put together, but I have real problems with lines and angles and things of that sort. And this is my challenge. And in the same way, I that's why perspective is an issue for me, not necessarily because I don't understand that things are smaller, further away and all that, but because I cannot seem to just copy things correctly. So uh, the eye is not working with the hand. It's called hand-eye coordination. Anyway, it's the same reason I have bad handwriting, but I try. So anyway, we'll go on with the next day.
Well, here are the woods. And if you'll follow me, I'll take you to my art studio, which happens to be my garage. It's kind of a mess, but there is enough room here to be riding a scooter.
I muted myself. I'm sorry. So, what I was saying, I really love to do portraits. I love to do narrative paintings. And I absolutely adore that part of the process. And unfortunately, all of my paintings turn out to be more like caricatures than they are anything else. But I'm going to do this one. I'm going to work on this one longer than this 1 week. But this is what I've achieved so far. It rained, by the way, a lot the past few days.
Well, I decided I needed do-over on the daughter and the father's friend.
Okay, hopefully I'm not muted this time. All right. So you can see that the daughter's face is maybe a little bit too big. I need to make it a little bit smaller. But what I think I can do, the thing that I'm naturally good at, is I can make the expression. I think you can see that the daughter is about 15 years old, and that she has, you know, the attitude toward life that you might expect of a 15-year-old. So, um, anyway, that was that. And I'm trying to remember. Okay, let's see the next one. All right. So that was making the brother look more like the chubby 3-year-old that he was at the time. So I was 15 and my brother was 3, and it was 1975. And so there you have it. Um, and so the other person in the picture was my father's good friend. In fact, after my father died in a helicopter crash, um, and we took his cremated remains to be scattered over Israel and the Sinai, uh, it was this friend who went with us, with me and my brother, to scatter the ashes. So now we will see what we're going to do with my mother and the friend Eldad Gabelman. So let me remove that and we can talk. So the painting is by no means complete. I have to figure out where everybody's hands are and where their arms are and where their legs are. And also, there's going to be a dog in the painting. So, in the original painting, our family dog, Azza, is sort of lurking behind in the background, somewhere between the airplane and the people. But I think that I'm just going to move us to the left hand corner of the painting, which seems a bit empty right now. And I'm going to have the dog looking at my father because that dog was devoted to my father. Oh, Angela Ball, you're here. So great to see you. I'm so glad that you love it. Um, it's wonderful to have you here. You know, I have a lot of people who come over to my live streams that are not about art on the other channel, but not so many people want to watch my art live stream. So I really appreciate your being here. Thank you, Angela Ball. Um, you're a true friend. So anyway, uh, yeah. So the dog's name was Azat. She was a German Shepherd, and she would go with my father to the airport every time he went flying and wait for him. And one time she was too enthusiastic and she didn't wait until after the engine was off, and she cut her nose on the propeller. But she was injured, but she recovered from that. She just needed some stitches. And after that, um, whenever she approached the airplane, she would sort of crouched down because she didn't quite understand which part of the airplane was dangerous. But she still wanted to greet my father every time he came back from flying. Oh, Angela Ball says, I love watching you paint. I do artwork as well, but not freehand. Well, thank you for sharing that, Angela Ball, because I know everybody's got a different way of doing things. And I know the way I do it, is not the best way. It's not even the best way that the professional artists who do actually use freehand do it. Mine is kind of a mixture because I've seen people who just come in with a color. They'll make a shape in a certain color and then they add a shape in another color, so on and so forth. But uh, in fact, I do a sort of drawing, which is kind of like outlining, but freehand. And then I paint in, but then I have to correct it because it isn't right, and so I go back and forth, and it's probably not the best way to do it. But I do enjoy doing it. And there are people who say, hey, if you enjoy it, that's the only thing that matters. But I'm not sure that it's the only thing that matters. And so that's where my art philosophy is a little bit different from some other people's. I do want to get better. And I haven't seen much improvement. The things that I'm good at are capturing people's expressions, I think, and capturing something about what they look like so they're recognizable, but unfortunately more in a caricature way than in a realistic way. I would love to be able to paint somewhat more realistically. I'm not saying that I'm going for pure realism, uh, but a little bit more realistic than I'm currently doing it. And I've had a friend tell me, you know, you don't have to hurry so much. You could take your time. And if you do that, then you might you might do better because everything can be improved and maybe you just need to take the extra time to improve it. So I'm going to follow that advice and take my time on this painting, and I won't declare it to be finished until December 31st. And so I have plenty of time. The thing is, most of the time I'm too busy to touch the painting at all. So some of this time will be spent not painting. But even that is good because I go into the garage every day. And even during the days when I'm not painting, I look at the painting. And something about looking is really an integral part of painting. Um, it's the passion of the eye. So the eye goes to the painting and I see what I like about it, but I also see what I don't like about it. And that will allow me, hopefully, to make small corrections over the months that I have allotted myself. I don't have to hurry. I don't want to make big corrections or I don't want to have to repaint everything all the time every time I see a problem. I want to make small corrections that make it better rather than make it worse. And that's the other thing, while painting can always be improved upon, it can also always be reduced. It can always be ruined by uh, a bad stroke. So that's why I do want to be careful. I don't want to drip paint over everything. I might cover some of the other figures when I'm working on one so that they don't accidentally get ruined. That's one of the concerns that I have. And anyway, that is my plan. So my vacation is nearly over. I have some other projects that I need to work on besides painting during the remainder of my vacation, which is almost done. Um, but I wanted to share with those of you who are watching my progress because it might have sounded like I said I was going to paint something really big for a whole year, and then for 4 months I didn't show up with a painting. So here it is. It might be another few months before I show you um, the next step along the way. But for now, that's where we are. So have a wonderful Sunday evening. I will say good night now. Good night, Angela Ball. Good night, anybody else who might have been watching. Um, if you want one of these coldest water bottles, you can get that, and there's a discount code that you could use. And I will go ahead and play the outro and say goodnight.